Outer Banks is officially over, so it's time to talk spoilers for this final season. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. Today I've got my spoiler review of Outer Banks Season 5 of all 10 episodes. So it goes without saying, spoilers ahead for these episodes. If you have not yet watched them and you don't want to be spoiled, be sure to save this video and then come back and watch it once you've seen the episodes. But if you don't care about spoilers, welcome to the party. We like to have a good time all the time. So Outer Banks is a show that I've honestly enjoyed for years now. But going into this 5th season, I just wanted them to land the plane, and I can say comfortably that they did. I have a non-spoiler review linked up above where I go into detail about why that is. But there are some things I couldn't mention in my regular review that I wanted to address here. So again, spoiler warning for Outer Banks. So the first 2 episodes of the season, to me, felt like they were just tying up some loose ends from Season 4, and I've said that a bunch, but let me elaborate on why. They're not at all in the Outer Banks. They're out in Morocco, they end up in Spain, they're trying to get home, but they're in these foreign countries, and so they're getting entangled with some bad people. They end up getting home finally in the 3rd episode, which kind of actually feels like the start of Season 5, because those first 2 episodes, to me, didn't really have the feel of Outer Banks. It wasn't like they were hanging out, gearing up for the start of a new season. It was more so, this is the immediate aftermath, and we have to handle some situations and spread out our characters before we can progress. Is it somewhat necessary? Probably, and honestly, unfortunately, I kind of just wish that they had handled that in Season 4. Really and truly feels like those first 2 episodes were supposed to be in Season 4. But something about these first 2 episodes, there's a lot more focus on like the Corsairs, who are these mercenaries, or Groff. And the main Pogues, I feel like, were limited in screen time. Also, Key has multiple moments where she's going full Nathan Drake. There's a moment, I think it's the 2nd episode. Key is following someone who she believes to be Groff. It ends up not being Groff. And so she gets into it with Finch, who's going to help her out, it seems. And she jumps out of like this moving gondola and perfectly lands, suspending her whole body weight on this railing on the side of one of these poles holding it up, and I was like, that is just so hard to believe. So she's like an acrobat this season, in these first 2 episodes especially. I was like, okay, not sure how I feel about this. But those first 2 episodes to me were kind of duds, I'll say it. I was a little concerned after both. Having seen the full season now, though, they really course-corrected and got back on track quickly with that 3rd episode. They go back to the island vibes immediately. Something interesting about that 3rd episode, though, is there's a new threat introduced. Basically, these drug dealers. There's this thing of drugs that John B finds out on the water. He takes it with Rafe and goes and gets some money from Barry because they're down tremendously, him and Sarah Cameron. Well, these drug dudes see this all go down, and so basically they confront John B and they're like, hey, we need the drugs back or $70K or we're going to kill Sarah Cameron. So that creates some stakes back home. Are they semi-artificial? Yeah, you could say they're kind of forced in there just to have extra urgency in this final season. But if we're looking at like villains of the season, they're 3rd on the totem pole. They're not as important. They're just there to add some urgency and stakes back home in the Outer Banks. So I understand, at least in my opinion, if someone were to say, hey, this season's a little overstuffed with villains. But something I brought up a lot in my regular review is how the Pogues are idiots. And let me actually elaborate on those examples here in spoilers. In the 4th episode, John B and Pope end up robbing Topper's house. And while they're there, John B is inside, obviously, and Topper's dad is drunk and he's stumbling around and he falls down the stairs. And instead of just leaving him because he's drunk and he could have easily fallen down the stairs and forgotten this whole thing ever happened, he feels the need to take him back up to his bed and tuck him in because then he'll think it was all just a dream. Buddy, he was so drunk he would not know what hit him. Plus, there was already security cam footage you guys got caught on, so that whole entire endeavor added unnecessary time just so Topper could get back in the house at the same time as you, and you could still not secure all the money you were trying to steal because you're being idiots. They were just doing things that had me infuriated time and time again this season. On top of that, we do go outside of the Outer Banks. Obviously, the first 2 episodes aren't set there. We return, but Sarah Cameron and John B end up going to New Orleans. Why, you might ask? Well, Sarah Cameron's mom is finally introduced this season. We get to see her. We've only seen Rose, who's her stepmom, throughout the show. But we actually see her birth mother here. She's like a music performer in New Orleans. She has this tool called the Citadel, which is directly associated with the Blue Crown and sort of possesses this incantation you're supposed to read in order to make the Blue Crown powers work and maybe bring someone back to life. But we get a whole road trip of John B and Sarah Cameron fighting these drug dudes who are still in pursuit of them, and then they end up in New Orleans where they get entangled with the mercenaries there, so there's a lot going on from the villain side of things. But it was nice to see Sarah Cameron's mom because she was able to tell Sarah, hey, Here's the truth about why I wasn't around. It was essentially Ward. Ward was manipulative, we knew this, but he drugged Sarah Cameron's mom and framed her to make it look like she was a bad parent who was on drugs, giving him full custody of the kids, and then she had to dip and leave. That was all a lie. So Sarah Cameron's perception of her mom was corrupt, and that's really tragic. I mean, it's probably a lot for Sarah Cameron to take in. She was a bit defensive at first, understandably so. Her entire life was built on a lie. I mean, we'd all probably react pretty drastically, and it would be life-altering to find out that information, so I understand where she's coming from, but ultimately she does warm up to her mom. Her mom steps up in a big way, and even in the end they're together, so I really appreciated that and liked that she got to have a parent still at the end of it all. Another thing I mentioned in my review was how there were some repetitive beats in this season. One of those is the fake out. It's a classic staple of Outer Banks. In episode 7, they fake out Sarah Cameron's death. She faints on the docks, and then they rush her to the hospital. It's like, we know she's not going to die. She's pregnant. They're not killing her this early in the final season. They just use that to try and get you to watch the next episode. Then there's this whole masquerade ball party in one of the episodes where basically the gang's trying to get a picture of some papers that would help them in uncovering the incantation that they need with the Blue Crown. Chandler Groff's there as well. He's trying to get after it. Chandler Groff drugs Kiara, and then she ends up almost dying. She gets tied to an anchor and dropped in the ocean, and I was like, they might actually kill her here, but at the same time, it was another fake out death. So that's kind of become a staple of Outer Banks. Sarah Cameron almost died in season 2. I mean, we've seen people nearly die, like Ward, for example, multiple times. So they really struggle to commit to killing people, which is fine. I'm not saying these characters need to be dropping dead. They straight up killed JJ, but it is just a thing where it's like, oh, they're probably going to be safe. It's just another fake out death. As we get towards the end of the season, though, things really pick up with regard to Rafe and Groff. Groff reveals to the whole island that, hey, Rafe killed Sheriff Peterkin. Here's the truth. So the sheriff and everyone goes after him. Everyone's in pursuit of Rafe. He has to go on the run. I will say the action scene on the runway was really sick, where Cleo basically goes full Mission Impossible, blows up the Twinkie, and is riding her bike trying to get onto the plane, but gets shot at and just barely misses it. That leaves the main core Pogues that remain to travel to Azerbaijan, the country where they're going to have the showdown with the Corsairs and test the Blue Crown's powers. But in the penultimate episodes, when all that stuff goes down with the Blue Crown, and basically they have this whole plan to destroy this bridge that Finch and his guys are on. A lot of action in this episode, but really the main emotional crux of this episode at the very end, where Kiara possesses the Blue Crown. She goes to the exact spot she needs to be to use it, and also times it with a meteor shower, which only happens every now and then. So everything's lined up for her. She reads the incantation, and JJ does not come back to life. However, she still sees JJ. She looks up at this bright flash of light, and essentially all of her memories with JJ flash before her eyes, from their first interaction and time they met to his last breath flashes before her eyes. And it's a way for her to gain clarity and peace of mind with JJ's death. She no longer just dwells on what she lost, but she's able to appreciate what she had. And that was a really necessary moment for her character this season in overcoming grief. Now, she's always going to miss JJ and grieve him, but she overcomes that immediate trauma, is able to put one foot in front of the other and set herself up for moving on in life, which is a very important thing to do. They montage through not only moments of just Kiara and JJ, but the entire Pogue gang, and it really pulled on the heartstrings with the score swelling, and it honestly had me emotional. And in the end of this episode, Finch and his guys have the Blue Crown, and that's really the end of it. Like, we don't see the Blue Crown again, and at that point, they don't really care. They know that it doesn't work, and they're just over it. They just want to get home. But then we make it to the finale, and that's where this huge storm's coming in. Kind of felt like it was paying homage to Season 1, as there's, of course, a huge storm in the finale of that season as well. And in this storm, everyone has to mandatory evacuate the island. So, in the mandatory evacuation and the chaos of it all, Rafe uses that opportunity to go break Sophia, his love, out of prison. That's right. She'd been held there to try and draw Rafe in to turn himself in. He said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to bust her out. So they get out, and in the process, Shoop is pursuing them. That is where Shoop gets trapped under this branch, and Rafe decides, you know what, I'm going to save him. But in the process, he says, I'm sorry for Peterkin. Like, he confesses, and he's like, I'm sorry, but you have to let me go. I'm out of here. You won't see me ever again. So Rafe is let go. He obviously goes and dips. I'll talk about that in a second. But Shoop and him kind of had that final exchange, which I thought was fitting. But sort of the climax of this episode is Kiara and Groff are on a boat out in this hurricane, and Groff ends up biting the dust finally. It was very deserved. It wasn't like Kiara stabbed him or shot him. He was tied up, he was hanging over the boat, and she cut the rope, so he was sent plummeting into the ocean, the depths of the ocean, where he ultimately drowned, and that was fitting. He was awful, psychotic this season, threatening to kill everyone, putting his hands on people like he deserved death, and justice for JJ was served. Of course, John B. and the rest of the Pogues are out on this boat. They go and rescue Key, and they couldn't have done it without the help of Rafe as he lights up the light on the lighthouse, but they make it back to land. The storm settles, and then we really get the sweet epilogue and final moments. Like, in order for a show to be a success, it really has to stick the landing with those character arcs and final moments, and I thought they did just that, okay? Basically, Rafe and Sophia ride off in the sunset. They're leaving the U.S. for good. That's that. We wipe our hands of them. They get on a boat, and they're gone. We aren't going to see them ever again. But now that Kildare is destroyed, basically, the Pogues have to rebuild it. And how do they do that? Well, they go out and find the gold that Kiara dumped off the ship earlier when she was out at sea fighting Groff. So they have like $400 million now when they discover that gold, and each and every single one of them are devoted to restoring the island the way that it should be in their mind, where Kooks and Pogues can live in harmony. As a part of this, John B. is able to reconstruct his house that was obviously destroyed. Sarah Cameron ends up having her baby. That was really sweet. We'll talk about that here in a second. But you also get a lot with Key, right? She ends up becoming the marine biologist she always wanted to be. She has this intern badge. We even see her carving out P for L on a bench that's commemorating JJ. With that, she also celebrates her parents. She says, hey, thank you for putting up all the crap I put you through. She gets them a boat, which was nice. And on top of that, she actually buys the old Maybank area and restores that as well, putting up the Poguelandia flag. So really sweet ending there. And for Pope and Cleo, they end up getting married. True love is in the air this season. Money can solve everything because she was not allowed to come back in the U.S. She was basically kicked out at one point. But they solved that with money. Money can solve legal problems in Outer Banks. Deal with it. They get married, and Sarah actually allowed them to have Tanny Hill. So they end up at Tanny Hill. She wanted that residence to be with a Tanny again, and I thought that was very fitting. We even get to see Pope restore his dad's seafood restaurant bigger and better than ever. So happy endings all around for the squad. But the real emotional moments come at the 1-year time jump. Of course, we're at John B.'s house, and him and Sarah Cameron are having an official wedding. Basically this big old party because they wanted to have an official wedding in front of everybody, and that is where we get to see our final goodbyes with like Barry, Shoop, Topper. Every character has this final interaction with John B. They then get married, and in the final moments, we get some huge reveals. Number one, JJ is actually the name of John B. and Sarah's kid. So they named their son after JJ, which just is such a way to honor his legacy. But also they have a moment where they ring the bell, paying homage to Big John, of course, who would ring that bell and say, bring it on home, John B. So we end with a big old wedding, celebrating the show, celebrating love, life, the character's journey that they went on throughout the show, and also honoring the legacy of every single character, JJ included. The final shot is beautiful. It's all our Pogues with baby JJ taking a picture in front of the tree. So in a sense, the spirit of JJ lives on through that photo. And the final lines from John B. are a callback to season 1, as he literally says straight up, but in the end, we found everything we wanted right here where we started, the Outer Banks, paradise on Earth. And that's the show. We get a cool montage through the credits as wedding photos are shown and videos from that night. My favorite detail here is that we do see Rafe again. He's actually on a FaceTime call with Sarah Cameron, so he was able to attend from afar, and that's nice to know that he'll still be able to be in communication with his family, even though he cannot be present physically in the Outer Banks. But overall, this is how you do it. Like, did the season top the first two? No, and it was never going to. But in my opinion, I do think it is better than season 3 and 4. I know that's crazy because JJ's missing, but I'm telling you guys, this show did a lot having a meaningful message about the grieving process in his absence, and still had the Outer Banks summer fun vibe with the globetrotting adventure. So I thought that it got back on track, and to me, I'd probably rank it somewhere right in the middle. I'm gonna have an official ranking in shorts and long form coming soon where I'll really elaborate on that. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I was moved, and I thought this is how you do it. They landed the plane. Couldn't have asked for a better ending. It was such a happy, feel-good ending. And the needle drop to end it all, that song Invisible Ink I just discovered from the show. I'll be listening to that for quite some time. But in the end, Outer Banks was a win, and I can always say P for L. But how do you guys feel about this ending? What are your spoiler-filled thoughts? Let me know in the comments down below, and hit that like button. Subscribe to that notification bell, and be on the lookout for more videos coming very soon. But thank you guys, as always, for watching, and until next time, P for L.